All right. So basically, what we were wondering is that, as I was saying, like there's definitely a world that's created by the performance of the vocabulary, and it's sort of pointing towards this utopia with a huge emphasis on collaboration and working together to produce things. And there's a shared vocabulary where everybody is thinking about how they contribute to the form, and that is sort of the essence of the utopian collaboration. But at the same time, especially for, as the point that you were making before in your question, it's a difficult to access form for people on the outside of this utopia. So part of what we were wondering is like, how do you, there's sort of two worlds almost. There's the world with shared vocabulary inside of the poem or the performance that exists. And there's a separate world that sort of we inhabit with our own shared vocabulary, maybe of the corporate lingo that Dave was making fun of, or whatever else exists in our world that we're all familiar with, about how we're languaged with, plus our own practicalities and what we care about in our day-to-day lives. So the question we were sort of pondering was, how do we sort of bridge these two worlds, the world of the poem and the world of the practical day-to-day that we inhabit, when they seem to be so different and they have different goals and different languages?
That's just a lovely question. And I'm going to ask Max, Anna, and then Lily to respond to it. But while they're thinking of something to say, I just want to say something. I want to up the stakes a little bit, John and Mike. And to speak directly to John, I'm assuming, since you're the son and you're on a gap year from college, I'm just going to assume, I think correctly, that you're a young person. And I guess what I want to say is that this is a crucial question. So listen hard to these brilliant answers, because it's a crucial question. Do you want to live a life which has the nuance and the open-heartedness of these experimental poems and still make your way in a world, right? To get your degree and get a job that's remunerative and make your dad proud and all that stuff, and still also want to be as sensitive and as utopian, that's your word, as Jackson McClough when he wanted to honor his deceased friend. There's a lot at stake here. Okay, so Max, Anna, Lily. Max first.
Sure. I think that was really astute, John, what you had to say about the McClough piece, these ideas of collaboration, and even the utopian dimension. It's something I've been thinking a lot about with the poems this week. How there's this attempt to share, or let's say diffuse, authority or power, which is, it's utopian to some extent, but it's very much a sort of political gesture that seems actionable, that seems pragmatic for our current reality. And it's just trying to, I think in this piece in particular, I mean, they're looking for ways to memorialize Peter Moore, but also, I think you're right. Looking for a way forward to create sort of collaborative work together to kind of imagine a new social relations and new relations around labor.
Thank you, Max. Anna, do you want to respond to John and Mike?
I am actually going to punt to Jake Marmer because Jake has to go. So I want to give him a chance to weigh in on this if he would like to.
Thank you. Jake, would love to hear you on this. Are you ready for it?
I can try to be. Thank you. So to the question of vocabulary that's difficult to access, and being on the other side of it, as I was hearing the question, and by the way, just hearing the whole narrative there, somebody was pointing out that we're in the space of storytelling, that little story of just family sitting down to like read poems late at night. That's that's so beautiful, and so personal, and so like your own world in there that just got shared with us, and I think all of us were just like moved, like that's absolutely beautiful. And we do find ways, I think, to go out of the tiny bubbles we're in and get beyond. But as I was hearing the question, I was also thinking, like, in a way, that performance was, one of a kind experience. We can read it and dig it and analyze it, but also you kind of have a sense you had to be there. You really had to be there in that one moment, and certain poems and certain performances and certain that's just how it is. And some poems are meant for the page, and some poems are meant for the page and also for that other experience. And it, we have to seek it out. I think it's so precious and special, being there in that moment, and witnessing it, that once in a lifetime thing.
Jake, thank you. That was beautiful. And Anna, thank you for generously ceding your senatorial time to Jake. Jake, have a great day. Before we turn to Lily, John, and Mike, I want to invite Amber Rose to say some version of what she said in our own little chat about the two of you. And I want to set it up by paraphrasing something that Jackson McClough said generally about these kinds of pieces. He said, and he was being pretty naive about it, Jackson was like that. He was very, very unironic. He was a pretty sincere person. He really meant this. He said, if only we can organize our relationships, our social relationships, like we do in this randomly put together piece, the one in honor of Peter Moore, the world will be better. We can actually solve problems in the world, he felt naively, if we would just organize ourselves in this sort of random way. And that social relationships are so predetermined and hierarchical, and they never cross as much as an aleatory work of art forces them to cross. He actually believed that. And Amber Rose is going to turn that back on you, on John and Mike, right, Amber Rose?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so warmed. I'm a huge daddy's girl, so I'm like, where's my dad? But I was just writing in the chat, and that was a beautiful lead-in, Al, because it's not quite that the relationships are random, but that they're out of order. They're out of what we anticipate or what we expect or what we are told is possible or reasonable. And what I put in the chat was that I said, perhaps we only get glimpses at utopias that never really hold. The image of father and son close reading poems together late at night in a study is one utopia, surely. And I mean, I'm saying that because I'm thinking about, okay, what is the order for how we're told to think about, one, what fathers and sons do together, right? What masculinity is, how we perform closeness, how we perform intimacy, what we're told men bond over, or like, how we're told that we don't have the attention span to close read poems right now. Like, there are all of these things kind of the order that tells us that this image of a father and son close reading poems late at night is impossible, is outside of the order of the day. And yet there's this small utopic moment that you all create, and it might not hold, it might not stay. You might not always enjoy it, right? But I think what the poem is showing us and what you all are modeling is that maybe we don't need utopias that are permanent. Maybe that's where it fails. But when we can find glimpses of it and honor those glimpses as important, as noteworthy, then maybe we can string more of those glimpses together and find a little more continuity between these fleeting utopic moments.
Wow, Amber Rose, that was just lovely. Lily, do you want to add something to that? And then John and Mike, I'll turn it back to you for you can get some final words in.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't want to take anything away from what Amber Rose just said, because that was really beautiful. But I guess the only other thing I feel like I could add is all of these performative performance-based works like this need an audience as much as they need performers. So I think it's really important to remember that just because something was like a fleeting or a sort of ephemeral piece, like there was a space for the person who wasn't actively, say, participating in making the art, you were still needed for that piece to go on. So I think, okay, we can't have a world where we're constantly performing vocabulary for Peter and Seymour, but we definitely can have a world where we're like ready to be an audience member or a witness to a performance going on somewhere else, or a different language being used somewhere else, and that's important to co-create something together.
Beautiful. Thank you. John and Mike, do you have some final thoughts before I ask you to hang up?
Yeah, I'd almost like to pose. Thank you for all of that. That was really sweet, and we appreciate all the really kind words. But I almost like to think also of ModPo as a whole as a sort of vocabulary for Peter and Seymour. Just in that, every week coming together for these webcasts is a sort of coming together, maybe ephemerally, for these poetic conversations, having a shared vocabulary that maybe people on the outside wouldn't understand, words like aleatory, and sort of using this shared understanding to figure out how we can all fit in and produce a bigger meaningful story that can commemorate something, or at least create some sort of shared quasi-utopic moment.
Damn.
But anyway, it just makes me glad to be a part of it.
John, damn. Hey, Mike, can you hear me?
Yes.
You have every reason to be as proud as I know you are of John.
No doubt about that.
Yeah.
We really enjoy this community, and honestly, just to talk to all of you, it's fun just because we watch your faces all the time. And this is a conversation John and I were having at 1 o'clock the other night about these poems and removing the ego and putting everybody together, and how that ties into the real world, and is that utopia realistic? And it's fun to hear you all talk, and thank you for giving us this gift.
Well, thank you both.